envisioned this day many times. And now we're here. It does take a village, and I think that I have to start in a place of gratitude. And I want to thank all of our nurses, staff at Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital, Dr. Arroyo, our family, our friends that have held us up in so many ways through the last 4, even 7 years. I don't know why we were chosen, but I know we have an obligation, and we couldn't do this without the support of the people in this room and the people abroad that couldn't be here today. Do you want to give a special thanks to specific people like Dr. Arroyo, and also my business partner, Prince Donahoe. He's the most understanding and one of the best people I've ever met in my life that has been completely supportive of our journey and holding down the fort at the office. There's many people on this journey that have come into our lives, holding us up in many different ways, whether it's myself personally, whether it's my wife, old friends, new friends, the Men of Gentleman's Journal. Today we've heard so much about the life that Ethan brought to everyone that came into contact with him. And his spirit continues to have. Ethan's story and our story as a family actually began 3 years before he was born, when Danielle and I were transitioning back to South Florida. Danielle was pregnant with Liam, and as part of the process, we were getting onboarded with an OB down here locally. We go in, and I've been to every appointment with her, and this appointment they said, maybe you're not as far along as you think you are, or maybe the baby's not as big as maybe you should be. I tell you what, let's set you an appointment a week from now, and let's monitor this. One appointment, I don't go with her that following week. I receive a phone call from Danielle, who was frantic, hysterical, saying something's wrong, we got to go to the hospital. We went, and the first thing we were told is, you're not leaving until the baby comes. Mind you, we're several weeks out from her due date. We don't know what's going on. Doctors don't know what's going on, but we do know is there's low amniotic fluid. The baby's struggling. Days went by, continued to monitor this, and eventually the perinatologist came to us and said, the baby's got to come. The baby's got to come tomorrow. We're going to run a few more tests and then ultimately see where we're at and have a better understanding of the situation. The next morning, they're preparing Danielle for the C-section, and the doctor comes to us and says, well, we have good news and we have bad news. Good news is we know what's happening. We feel like we have an idea about what's happening. The bad news is it appears to be a fetal bleed, and mommy's body's reading that baby as an intruder and attacking that baby. You're going to expect a pale, anemic baby, motionless and without a cry. I felt like I was just like I wasn't in my body. I just felt like I was watching it from elsewhere. I couldn't believe what was happening in this moment. I go into the delivery room. They already have the sheet up. And I just went in there, held her hand, closed my eyes, and prayed. And my eyes opened to the most beautiful cry I've ever heard in my life. It was Liam. NICU nurses rushed Liam to the side, worked on him, and I'll never forget this nurse's big green eyes looking over a mask saying, the baby looks great, the baby looks great. It was a wonderful moment. Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital, they have this chapel downstairs, multi-faith. And when you walk in, they have these, few pews in the front, and they have a bowl at the front where you could write down a prayer and you could put it there. It was filled with all these different notes from people passing through the hospital that were there praying for their loved ones. And every day I went in there and I said a prayer of my own. Pray for good health and a life worth living for my son. We were there a month with Liam, then he got healthier, and then he came home. For those that know me, I used to love telling that story until we had Ethan. It was Danielle's birthday, February 24th, 2020. We were getting ready to go out and celebrate her birthday. And Danielle once again said, something's just not right. We got to go to the hospital. And sure enough, it was like deja vu all over again. No amniotic fluid. Nobody knew what was going on. The condition that we were told, this is an aberration. This will never happen again, happened again. Went into the same room. Cloth was up. I held her hand. I closed my eyes and I prayed. This time there was no beautiful cry. They took Ethan to the other room, and as I was juggling between checking on his condition and Danielle's, I was by her bedside when the doctor came in, and I could tell by the look on her face things were not good. In the hallway, I spoke to her privately, discussing palliative care and the options that we may have. And that night, I went down to the very same chapel and made the very same prayer, this time for my second son. For good health and a life worth living. Several days later, Ethan woke up and opened his eyes for the first time. He was on a ventilator and showing signs of improvement. Danielle and I were on pins and needles. Every breath, every moment. 4-month NICU experience was certainly a roller coaster. One day we received a call from the doctors, and the doctor was on the line in the room with Ethan, and all he heard was buzzing and noises in the background and a commotion. And the conversation was basically like, hey, I'm not sure what you guys are doing, but you better get upstairs because your son's going to die. That was basically the conversation. We went up there. Turns out he had a hole in his lung, which is called a pneumothorax. Air was seeping into his body. The doctors put in a pump and were able to get the air out and allow that to heal, the process for that to heal. I remember during that time, every time the phone rang, we would just jump across. It was almost like a stress disorder. I'll never forget one night, it was 10:30 at night on a Sunday, we get a call, and I jumped across the bed, picked up the phone. It was the hospital, and they said, hey, we're calling to tell you our urgent protocols for this coronavirus that's seeping into the country. One day, we went back to the hospital, because we were there every day, of course. And when we walked into the room, we saw the look on the doctor's face that something just wasn't right. We were told that, hey, we have to do a procedure, take 10 to 15 minutes. It seems like the pump was maladjusted and air was collecting in his body again. I said, Danielle, you know what? Why don't we go in the lobby? 10 minutes went by, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. And out doesn't come the doctor, out comes palliative care. We go into the back room, and they said, well, the procedure was successful, but we saw a long and prolonged seizure. Ethan was so fragile. He was so tiny. We had to weigh everything. But in that moment, we made a decision to enter a DNR and to make a decision to plan the events to withdraw care. As we were leaving the hospital that day, I went down to the same chapel and I just made one simple prayer. I said, God, if there's a miracle here, you have to let us know. Days went by, we were preparing. They have services there where you could record your child's heartbeat so you could play it to music. We took pictures with Lay Me Down to Sleep. We had our family in to say goodbye. Danielle and I wanted to make sure we're making the right decision. There's so many unknowns, but we wanted to be certain that this was the right decision, so we requested an MRI to be done on Ethan. He was very small at the time, and he had to grow larger for us to be able to do that procedure. But every day we went to the hospital, we informed doctors and said, hey, just a reminder, we made a decision to withdraw. It's okay if we don't have this particular procedure done. We made a decision. But if we could do it, we would like that information. And every day we walked in there, and then something happens that no one expected. Ethan's lungs healed quicker than anticipated. I went in, gave the same reminder. I said, hey, doctor, just as a reminder, we can't slip out this window. And he looked at me and said, there's nothing to withdraw from anymore. He's breathing on his own. We didn't realize it at the time, but miracles come in ways you don't expect. During that time when we made that decision to withdraw, it was probably some of the hardest times of my life. I sat down, along with all the other services that were running, I sat down by his bedside and read to him Peter Pan. And it's funny when you read stories later on when you're older. You maybe picked up on something you didn't quite pick up on before, or there's some sort of iteration of the story that gets lost. But it wasn't lost upon me when I read that first chapter. And the Lost Boys were children that fell out of their strollers and the parents couldn't find them. The symbolism of Peter Pan as a guide taking the children safely to a place called Neverland, where their imagination and abilities could run free. The Lost Boys, the children that didn't grow up. But Ethan came home. The miracle was served. And we really got to know him. He's a special kid. He had this spirit to him where you know that personality's in there. You know his being's in there. His soul, his love, everything. He didn't have the earthly body to let it fully come through, but it was there and you felt it when you were with him. Everyone talked about his laugh. You better believe it. It was the best therapy on the planet. This child with so many conditions, or you think has so many limitations, and you wonder about quality of life, but he was the happiest kid. His joy. He's hitting his milestones. He was growing. Love listening to Bob Marley. That was my doing. I discovered that. Even till his last days, I would lay in bed with him, holding him. And I'd have the Panthers game on that finally won the Stanley Cup. And I'd put it right in front of him, and he was glued to it, like he knew what was going on. He felt the presence of everyone around us, the motion with him. He'd make noises. It was like we were talking. It's before I had a child with special needs, you really kind of, from an outsider perspective, say, is there quality of life there? Is there something there? There is. We lived it. We know. It's just different. 3 years ago to the day, just about. We started to understand what our journey was when Liam had an awful seizure. Probably the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my life. And it led to a series of events where we got diagnosed with Coates-Plus syndrome for both boys. We had a decision as a family that day to either allow us to pull us down to the depths of despair, or we're going to wake up each day and make that choice to keep fighting. One day at a time, one step at a time, find a way. Danielle reads these books on spirituality, and she shared a little bit with you today. And there's one point that I just can't let go of. She discussed soul groups, soul pacts, the idea or concept of choosing your parents before you're born. And I asked her, why the hell would Liam and Ethan choose us? Some people are brought here to be teachers, and some people are brought here to be students that learn lessons. What kind of people would we become? What are we made out of? These children are willing to make these great sacrifices. What excuse do we have but to wake up every day and fight for our children? Take the obligation and responsibility of this could have happened to anybody, but it happened to us. A pediatric nurse, not a doctor, but I know how to talk to people. There's obligation with this, not just to us, but the children that come after. We're confronted with the question, do we give these kids the best life we can in this short window of time we have, or do we go and we try to make a difference? Our answer was, let's do both. We started a foundation, Coates-Plus Foundation. We interconnected patients, doctors, researchers from around the world. Every parent I spoke with said, I thought we were the only ones. Our community's larger. We went to CHOP, Boston's Children, National Institute of Health, Stem Cell Institute, local teams of Joe DiMaggio, who are saints. Telomere specialists, foundations like DC Action and Team Telomere. We connected with Dr. Brianna Crow out of Edinburgh, United Kingdom. He's the doctor that in 2012 made the link between this disease and this particular genetic mutation. He's one of our researchers. We had weekly calls with parents, monthly Zoom meetings with broader groups, the personal hours of research we put forth out of the love of our children. There are children out there that are undiagnosed and misdiagnosed with this very newly understood disease. Recently, there's a family out of Italy that found us, one of many families. As you heard Dr. Arroyo speak, we found a drug for off-label use that stops some of the bleeding throughout their body, or a lot of the bleeding, which stems the progression of the disease and buys us more time. 20 days from that family getting their diagnosis, connecting with me, their doctor's on the phone with Dr. Arroyo sharing the notes and information that we garnished as a foundation, as a group, and as a team. 20 days. If this isn't God's work, I don't know what is. We have a long way to go. So much more has to be done. But it's not just about the mission. It's also about that authentic love we have for our children. We have to find a way to have as much quality of life as we can in this child's life, and that's what we did. Family trips, we organized times where he'd go to a PPAC and be loved and held by others. Go to school, ARC. Some of the representatives are here today. Wonderful organization. He even had a little girlfriend in school. They used to hold hands. That's my boy. Anyway. We had friends, people that cared about him, held him. We had to enjoy as much time as we had that was so limited. Of course, the cloud of this constant and consistent long emergency that we've been living casts a large shadow. Countless doctor's appointments, feeding tube, eye procedures that took almost all of his sight, hydrocephalus that took away his ability to sit up, roll over, GI bleeds that ultimately took his life. So many people have asked us, how do we do it? How do we go on? You could visit the pain, but you can't live there. That is a lesson. What you focus on grows. Do we focus on the despair, or are we going to focus on what we have in the moment and what we can do? That is a lesson. Connect with others, talk about it, develop support systems, whether it's through groups like GJ, Faith, a renewed faith for me. Fighting for something bigger than yourself, even under the harshest of circumstances, all lessons from our teachers. Responsibility, honoring a code, an obligation, a commitment of unconditional love, all lessons. Providing grace to others, as everyone has a battle you know nothing about, another lesson. Providing grace to yourself, as we are all humans and imperfect, another lesson. We all love our children. We all have dreams for them. Each episodes that we've had with Liam was a shift in those expectations. It was a slow death of a dream we had for him. But we thank God that these shifts never took the life that emits from his soul. His light, his ability to connect was never gone. His laugh, his love, his ability to bring joy to all others, all elements that are associated with the now in this moment. You see, Ethan never was thinking about kindergarten, driving a car, crushing school, what he wanted to be when he grew up, what college to attend, or having a family of his own. All illusions. All things that exist in some dreamed of and far-off future that had never existed. Those weren't his dreams. Those were our dreams once. Ethan's experience was pure joy, every moment in the now. That is a lesson. A lesson we can only learn in time. In the Jewish faith, a child receives a Hebrew name. With all of our complications, we didn't have a chance to do that until just a couple weeks ago, while Ethan was on hospice. Rabbi Uri gave him the name Chaim, life. Ethan brought life to every room he was in. While Ethan didn't have those dreams, there's another little boy in that lobby. Wants to drive a car one day and have a phone, and be a firefighter or an attorney. Own 100 dogs and walk on walls like Spider-Man. And there are other little boys and girls that have their own dreams that suffer from the same condition. We're trying to do something that's never been done before. Learn, treat, and find a cure to this rare disease. Each day we wake up, we know we're on the clock. We pray we do it in time for Liam. At some point we knew Ethan's story had been written. Now his heavenly body is among the loved ones that came before him and the lost boys of Neverland. where he is playing and running free. Ethan's story has inspired so many, brought awareness, and has left researchers material from his earthly body to bring life and knowledge to others. You will be sorely missed. Until we meet again, to Ethan, to life, L'Chaim, I love you. Run free.